Okay, so today is going to be pretty cool. This is the start of a new project that I've been wanting to do for a little while, and after watching Michael Westbrook's video on when he built his Dumble clone, which I'll put in the cards up here, I decided to get myself an amp kit. Now, I've wanted a really high-end amp for a good while, but I don't have the kind of money to drop $4 on an SLO, so I found a kit to build an SLO-30, and it arrived yesterday. What is up, guys? My name is Ben Hartwell. Thanks for checking out the channel. If it's your first time here, or even if it's not, please consider smashing that subscribe button. It really does help out the channel. So, today's a pretty interesting day. Yesterday, this box arrived, and in this box is something pretty cool. In this box is every single part that I will need to build a Soldano SLO-30 clone. Everything from the smallest resistor all the way up to the amp chassis. Now, this is quite an undertaking and is not going to be a quick project by any means. I expect this is going to take me quite a long time to do, but I thought I'd document the whole thing so you guys can follow along as I build this amp. I'm going to take things really slow and methodical to try and minimize mistakes. Now, I am quite electronically minded. I've rebuilt a few bits and pieces and I've rewired guitars. Some of the videos you can check up here. And I am quite handy when it comes to building things, like I built this studio desk. So, although this is a massive undertaking and a lot more complicated than anything I've done before, I think as long as I take my time and follow the instructions, it shouldn't be too bad. So job one today is just to unpack this box and make sure that everything that should be in it is in it. So it is week number 2. This is a big project. Managed to do quite a lot in a week though, even though I haven't been able to film because I've been so busy here in the studio and I've had a ton of gigs. But I've actually got quite a bit done. As you can see, all the knobs are in, all the switches are in, the inputs, all the outputs are in, the impedance selector, the effects loop, the first board is built, the choke is in, the power input and the fuses are in, and all the valve sockets are in. So I am very slowly getting there, but this is a very difficult and complicated project. I have already had to redo one of the parts because it wasn't very neat the way I did it before, but I'm much happier with it now. So I think today's task is to make a start on the bigger PCB, because once that's done, I can start actually laying things out properly in the chassis. So let's see how far I can get with that. So the process of sorting each of the PCBs out isn't too difficult really. It's just a case of following the layout and matching each part number to the part number on the parts list. So for example, say it's one of the resistors, just find the resistor number on the layout, match it to the resistor number on the parts list, and that tells you what value that resistor is. I then take that resistor, and although their value is marked by Rosamp, I tested each and every one with a multimeter just to double check, bend the wires into position, get the part in the PCB. Then once I'd done a section, I think I split it into about 4 sections, turn the PCB over and solder a whole load of them in one go. That kept things fairly straightforward and I wasn't trying to do too much at once, and that meant I could slowly and methodically work my way through the layout. Okay, so it is week 3, or is it week 4? I don't even know at this point, of working on the SLO clone. It's mostly gone pretty smoothly. I have had a couple of areas that I've struggled with, one being that Rosamp sent me a different transformer than what's on the layout. So that took a bit of working out, as the wires were different colours to the ones that were on the layout. So it just took a bit of working out of what went where, but got there in the end. I also ran out of bus wire, so I had to get a bit more of that so I could complete the long runs between the tube sockets. And then there are a couple of other things that I just needed clearing up with Rosamp regarding the schematic and the layout. But that's pretty much it. as you can see, all the wiring is done. Everything's in place, everything is fastened down. I've checked every single connection and every single piece of wire against the schematic and the layout. Some of the connections you have to make on this app are quite tricky, where there are 3 or 4 cables going into a single connection, and maybe even a resistor or a capacitor in there as well. So you do have to be really careful about the way that you end up soldering them. But I've tried to do my best and keep everything as neat and tidy as possible, hopefully to eliminate any problems. So once all my checks are done, we can do the first power on. Hopefully everything will power up. Then we just need to bias and hopefully we can play it. Okay, so the amp did power up on first try. A very scary experience, but took all the necessary precautions, had a fire extinguisher on hand, and it powered up, no problems really. It even had sound on the very first try. So I played the amp for about 20 to 30 seconds just to check that we had sound and things were working as they should be. Then I decided, just to be on the safe side, that I was going to take it to a tech to get someone who really knew what they were doing to check the amp over, check that everything was nice and safe and working the way it should be. So I took the amp down to Mac Amplification near Leeds, where they gave the amp a full check over and they biased it for me. According to the guys at Mac Amplification, there wasn't anything wrong with the amp. There were just a couple of things that he wanted to redo in a different way, just to help with the noise floor of the amp. So he redid a couple of bits of the wiring for me, and they also biased the amp for me. I have biased a few amps myself in the past, and after a modification that Howard has done for me on this amp, I can now bias this one myself. But prior to him doing that mod for me, there was no real bias test point, and I wasn't really too sure where I should be testing in this amp. So I thought, to be on the safe side, I'll get them to do it for me. So after those few modifications at Mac Amplification, here's how the inside of the amp is looking now. You can see the couple of runs that Howard has done for me just to tidy things up and help with that noise floor. It's looking really nice and tidy now. So I've just been and collected the amp. I have given it a little playthrough already. It sounds pretty amazing. But the next step is to get this thing in a head shell. And it just so happens that here's one I made earlier. Here she is. What do you think? I'm really happy with how this has come out. Making the head shell wasn't too difficult, I think, to do. Didn't film the whole thing as I didn't know if that's something that you guys are really that interested in. And besides, there's a whole load of videos on YouTube on how to build simple wooden boxes. So I just went with a really simple design using 18mm ply, doweled and glued the whole thing together, rounded all the outside edges off, filled any holes, made sure the whole thing was nice and smooth. I decided to go for the purple Tolex as I think it just looks absolutely killer on amps. I had to do it in a slightly odd way, as the length of Tolex that I could get wasn't quite long enough to do a full single wrap of the head shell. So I did the bottom first in a single piece, then did the top and sides and cut them to match, did the corners and glued the whole thing together. A couple of things that you really need are a really sharp knife so that you can make really precise straight cuts, and a straight edge. Also need to use a really good quality contact adhesive. I ended up going with Evo Stick. Links to everything that I used are in the description below. And then it's just a case of really taking your time, making sure that both surfaces have got a nice covering of the contact adhesive, letting it dry until it is touch dry. That's really important. Then pressing the two surfaces together, rolling out any bubbles, and then trimming off any excess. The real hard bit is the corners. I really recommend watching some of the videos on YouTube on how the pros do this. Some of the companies like Zilla Cabs, who make it look really easy, show you how to do these corners. I ended up doing an okay job, but as I knew that I was going to be putting some metal corners on this amp, I wasn't too concerned about making the edges super neat and tidy. I'm still waiting to get some black screws to replace these silver ones, and the black piping just to really finish off that front. Two things that I am still waiting on to get the whole thing finished. I need to get a logo put on the front of here. Still undecided on how to do that. Maybe some 3D printing, or I can get some metal fabricated to get my logo put on the front of the amp. And on the rear, I still need to get a grille to cover the back of this rear. I think I've got somewhere that's got the right size of grille that I need. I'll just have to cut it to length so that it fits in the head shell. All that I need to do is attach a couple more pieces of wood for it to attach to, and then that'll be the back of the amp finished. So with it all now in its head shell, nice, safe and secure, let's hear how she sounds. you go. What do you think? I'm really happy with how this amp has come out. Now, there are loads of really good demos here on YouTube of SLO-30 amps. Jack's from Peach is especially good. I'll put links in the cards and in the description. I figured instead of doing that, I'd build an entire track around this amp. So every sound you heard in that track was coming from the new SLO-30 that I've built. And I probably will do a mix breakdown of this track in the future so you can hear all the individual isolated guitar parts. So there you go, an SLO-30 amp built from scratch with the kit from Rosamp. Not the easiest of things to do, but taking it really slow and methodical. I managed to get there in the end, and I'm really happy with the outcome. I think it sounds amazing. I have already done a gig with this amp. I had to do that gig before I'd even received the corner, so it was in a bit of a makeshift state, plonked on top of my cabinet. But the amp sounded great and it got through the gig flawlessly, and I can't wait to gig it again. So I think I've covered everything in the video, but if there's anything I've missed or you want to know any more, let me know by asking questions below and I'll get to them in a future Q&A. But for now, I hope that you've enjoyed the video. If you have, give it a thumbs up below. If you want to watch another video on my channel, you can do it just up here. And don't forget to subscribe, you can do it right there. See you in the next one.